I think I learned at a very young age the value of failure. Number one, it will tell you, do you really want to do this? And number two, it will tell you that, hey, failure is actually probably a really good thing.
Welcome to the Mountain Tough Podcast, brought to you by Sig Sauer. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Mountain Tough Podcast. I am Dustin Defender, host and CEO of Mountain Tough, and I'm so glad that you are here. We absolutely love seeing you come back to the show week after week, and it is our goal each and every single time to bring you an inspiring guest that helps you transform your life. We're going to dive into their mindset, their mental fitness, and the tools and tips they use for their mental toughness. Thank you for listening, and thank you for making us one of the top mental toughness shows in the country. If you are a new listener and you haven't listened to the Mountain Tough show before, I do want you to know that we offer a special code to Mountain Tough Podcast listeners. That code is Mountain Pod, all one word, all caps, MTNPOD. If you just go to mountaintough.com, click Start Free Trial, that code gets you 6 weeks of free training on the Mountain Tough app. So that'll unlock Mountain Tough Plus for you, where you can dive into all of our physical, spiritual, nutritional, and mental toughness programming, streamed anywhere on any device, 6 weeks free. That is a great way to make sure that you're kicking off 2025 in the right direction. Shifting over to today's guest. This is a special episode. This guy is a great friend of mine. He did participate with me this year on the Sig Arc Invitational. That was a shooting competition we did here in Bozeman, sponsored and presented by Sig. Kind of that PRS style 3-person team. It was me, Brian Barney, and then the guest on today's show, Kevan Miller. Kevan is a former professional ice hockey defenseman. He played for the Boston Bruins, and he also is living his dream, following his heart. He's building a cabin out here in the middle of nowhere, Montana, raising his kids up in the mountains, homeschooling his kids, and really following the calling in his heart, living out here in the country. So we're going to dive into that today. We're going to dive into how he got here, his mindset, his faith. It's a phenomenal episode. So please stand by for my conversation with Kevan Miller. How long is the drive to the Mountain Tough Lab from your new place?
About 50 minutes. Depends on which way I go. I really like to go through north sometimes, but then there's like you lose service and there's sketchy, truck drivers. And so, but if I go around the other way, it takes a little bit longer, but it's probably a little safer.
Yeah. So under an hour?
Under an hour.
That's not bad.
No, not at all.
When did you guys first have the idea to kind of move into the middle of nowhere? Most people aren't going to know where you're living, but
yeah,
from where you've been and what you've done in most Americans' lives, you guys are basically in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, our buddies, it's funny. We had a couple of buddies that come out, and friends of mine that live in Utah that were close to where we were, and they come out here, like my friend's wife was like, hey, Haley, like my wife, she's like, when do you want me to rescue you?
I know, especially for your wife. You guys are,
she's such a trooper.
Yeah,
she's such a trooper. Like, and all my subs that come out on the house are like, man, how'd you get your wife to like? I'm like, man, it's kind of her idea, to be honest with you. So, but no, I think it's just kind of been an evolution. I think it's always been kind of a goal of mine. And she got on board with that pretty early, and then. I don't think I could have gone right from like Charlestown, Boston to like where we are.
Yeah, culture shock.
It would have been a lot. It would have been a big gap. So we've kind of, we moved to Utah and loved it there. It's awesome. But I think that was a good transition to then go, okay, well, we're not quite where we want to be. Mm-hmm. And she understood the value of what we had there, and just as family-wise, what we were looking for. But it wasn't quite where we wanted to be. I would have love to just go right from here to here. But that was a good, healthy transition for us to then get to here. And so now she's fully on board, and kids love it. I love it. It's just it's what we've always really wanted for the family. So
was the Utah step part of the plan of like, we're going to get out west, we're going to get into some mountains, but maybe we'll start kind of here?
No, that was a forever spot.
Yeah.
Right. But we bought that place, the land in 2020 while I was still playing, like before COVID, like January of 2020. And thought that was going to like check all the boxes. We weren't really sure where we wanted to land. But I kind of saw it as like, yeah, I think this will fill both sides. I think this will fill my cup, but also give, space to fill her cup in this regard. And then when we got there, everything was great. But then it started to really unfold that like, hey, this is almost there, but we're looking for something a little bit different. And that's where we landed here. My cousins, obviously, they've been here forever, and we come to visit all the time when I was a kid. And I kind of always had this as like a spot that I would have loved to end up. Didn't know that I could really get my wife to get on board with it.
Yeah. She's stoked about it.
She just loves it. Yeah, she just loves it. And I'm gonna have to like taper. I have to bring down kind of expectations, because she's like, we want to run cows, we want to get dairy cows, we want chickens and goats and bees, and I'm like, well, I think we're going to pick a few and then start there. So
homesteading.
Exactly, yeah.
How close is your closest neighbor?
There's one that's like, I don't know, half a mile, a little less, maybe, third of a mile.
And you guys are on 900 acres?
800.
800.
Yeah.
And surrounded by mountains.
Yeah, we're pretty blessed. It's got a lot of BLM and state behind us that makes it pretty, it's not inaccessible for people. But anybody who's going to come over the top of that, like, I'd probably want to hunt with them anyway.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it opens a lot of space for us, which is a lot of fun. And it just, the intention is to raise our kids that way and, give them a leg up. And if they want to choose to be a part of that and turn that into something later on, then it's there for them. So.
Yeah. Horses, and then building your house right now, living out of the shop that's done.
Yep.
With some wall tents in there.
Yeah, the Sig's Arc tents that we slept in. It's perfect, man. It's like I got my bed in there and my clothes and my wife's stuff, and then the next door is the kids' stuff, and they're in hog heaven. So
wall tents in a shop for bedrooms is pretty brilliant, actually.
It worked out awesome. Like I was like, man, I don't know if she's really gonna. And then she's really glad that we're doing that, because it's great. It's heated in there, and she got her stuff and everything's organized, and we're big like organized people, so it works out well.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff brings your family so close together.
Oh, it's awesome.
It's like you're camping out together.
Well, kids got a trampoline from Santa, and so the trampoline's in the barn, and then all the I was telling the guys, like, all the hay's in the barn for the horses, and they're two big stacks, and one of them is pretty much done, and so they couldn't get to the top of this one, but they quickly figured out that if they grab the horse's lead rope and clip it onto one of the top strings from the bales, they can use it as a rappelling rope and climb to the top. So they're like, I'm like, normally I'd get mad because they're making a big hay mess, but like, so wholesome. It was perfect. They're just like having the time of their lives. So,
man, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And then you guys are moving forward with the intent to homeschool for a little bit.
Yeah, we're 2 years in now with that. That's been, I give all the credit to my wife. She's wanted to do that from day one. I always was like, yeah, this would be great, but like, hey, I'll be honest, I can't with my job, what I'm doing. I can pour in a little bit, but I can't. I can't do that. So she's taken that on, and she's been awesome with it. And we're just taking it year by year. We had some friends in Utah that did it, that really encouraged my wife, which was really a blessing. And she took that kind of head on, which is awesome. And we'll see how it goes, but I think we're going to do it for at least a good bit of time. Yeah. Give them a good foundation.
Was your childhood pretty outdoorsy, pretty rural?
I was born in California, but like not Northern California-ish, kind of middle, like just south of Bakersfield. But we didn't live like in a, like cul-de-sac, if you will. We were kind of out there a little bit, and I have two brothers, and we spent a lot of time outdoors. And my dad was a big, like, Sierra Nevadas hiker and fisher and backcountry stuff. So, so we did a lot of that as a kid, and I always just loved that. And so, obviously with the hockey thing, that was kind of took me that direction. And then, but I always had this kind of in my background, like this is what I'd like to be and where I'd like to be. So
I definitely want to unpack this kind of topic of personal agency with you a little bit, because like when I think about you and I look at you, it is inspiring and interesting that you've kind of built the life that the way that you have now, because I think from a few different viewpoints of there's a lot of men that would love to move into the wilderness of Montana, but don't put the action steps in place to do it. Yep. And they're either like scared to do it or intimidated to do it, have a lot of fear around what would actually happen if they did do that. Even though I am a big believer that there is a lot in our DNA that is calling us to do that, telling us to do that. Like we're meant to be bold, we're meant to live wild. And so the individuals that aren't doing that know that they should, they are struggling with that inner battle. But you've found a way to kind of make all of that happen.
Yep.
But you've also done it in a really creative way, because, you know, pro hockey, NHL, I'm assuming you could have played for a much longer time, but you retired earlier than most, earlier than normal, to create this brand new life that you wanted to create. So there's also a really unique side of that story, because most people with pro sports, you know, working your whole life to get to that level, a lot of people that get to that level don't want to leave, will never leave until they're forced to leave. And then also, you know, they're paid well, so they want to stay in the game as long as possible. So you've like really crafted a unique story, which is rare. But curious around like that personal agency, has that always been part of you, that like you're going to write your own story no matter what? Hey guys, I want to let you know about Jace Medical. I know a lot of Mountain Tough customers, a lot of Mountain Tough community members, those listening to this podcast, are going on big hunts, massive expeditions all over the world. We love seeing that, and we love that you already know that you have to train physically for these trips. You have to train with your weapon. You need to be proficient with your weapon. But an often overlooked area of these expeditions is your personal medication. We actually just got back from a trip like this. The Mountain Tough crew went to Kyrgyzstan, and we needed the peace of mind of a customized medical kit that we could take with us, and we needed it at the exact time for this trip. So we went with Jace. We got our Jace case sent directly to us. We were able to grab it, open it up, throw it in our Kyrgyzstan pack, and take it with us. It gave us the peace of mind that in these international environments, we were going to be covered when it came to infection, GI issues, and anything else we were going to run into overseas medically. So check these guys out, an amazing company. The Jace case is going to come with 5 antibiotics that cover the 50 most common illnesses that you're going to run into anywhere in the world. But additionally, there's 29 add-ons that you can choose to customize your kit. So you can throw things in here like ivermectin, EpiPens, anything you need to customize it personally for you. So check these guys out, an amazing brand, amazing company, very practical for the Mountain Tough community. All you need to do is go to jacemedical.com and use the code MOUNTAINTOUGH at checkout. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough Podcast.
Yeah, man, that's a lot to unpack, though, to be honest with you. There's so much there. I think as far as like when I retired at 33, I had 4 knee surgeries on my right knee. I could have kept playing, I think, but I think it was I went out on my own because I had other goals. I love the death out of the game, loved the heck out of every minute of it. There were ups and downs with anything, but was so grateful for my time. And like I tell people, you know, all the time, I played 10 years pro and I played 10 years longer than I thought I was going to play. So, you know, it was always a goal to play in the NHL, but you need a lot to go right. And I had a lot of people in my corner for that to happen. But yeah, I could have played and extended the career, I think, a little bit, but there were other things that, you know, my daughter was 3 and my son was 1 when I retired. And so, that when you have kids, really changes people. And my goals for what I wanted, how I wanted to raise them were kind of expedited. And so that became priority 1. And then just as far as like like what you talked about as far as like my personal agency and how I got to where I am as far as doing the things to get to Montana to be kind of where we're living. Yeah. You know, it's funny. I was kind of thinking about this the other day, but it's interesting to see kind of how you have things that I vividly remember as a kid, seeing things or hearing things or watching a show that really kind of stuck with me, right? So you're gonna laugh at this, but there's like cornerstone movies that like as a kid, like that we watched. You know, Tombstone, Braveheart. Yeah, my family just loved that, right? But one for me was like Legends of the Fall.
Oh, I love that one so much.
Great movie.
Yeah.
Right. And I think like I was just thinking about this the other day, and you know, now that I'm retired, I've had time to really kind of think about, hey, why did I have this inkling to like be here where I'm at and chase that kind of like wild thing that you're talking about that like most men like really crave. Yeah. That's a lot. Like I see that movie and it's like, he talks about losing the madness over the mountain. Yeah. You know? It's like, it's crazy how like relatable that is, or kind of like what we were looking for is that, you know, I lived in California as a kid, and then I moved back east for prep school, and I went to hockey or University of Vermont for college, and in Boston, in Providence in the minors for a year or two, and then played in Boston. And so I'm in these cities and this whole thing, and big cities they were necessary, but like they were just never kind of what I was really looking into at all. They were kind of necessary at the time for me to play and do this whole thing, but we're not where I really wanted to end up. So, you know, and I had that conversation with my wife multiple times, just kind of like, hey, this is, you know, it's
you're
necessary
being
right
called
now.
Out west.
Yeah, but like, hey, this is where I want to be and how we want to raise our kids, and this is, you know, pre-kids. And she's like, yeah, absolutely, I'm on board. And you know, and she was born in California. We dated in high school, and so she, you know, she never really had that kind of understanding of, hey, why are you going that direction? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? But she definitely, you know, she was like super supportive of me in that, and then once I think when she got a taste of it, she realized kind of what was going on. Yeah. And now she's all in, which is really cool. Yeah. And so I had to be very intentional about it, and how this kind of went about. And I had a really good, but I still got a really good buddy who was in my CLC group in Utah, and he's a much brighter human than I am, and is older than I am a little bit. And he's like, hey, you need to, because I first brought this up. Hey, we're going to leave Utah, Haley. We're going to move to Montana. She's like, no, you out of your mind? We just got set. The kids are set. It's all good. But he put me through an exercise, and he's like, you need to do this with your wife. And he's like, you need to do, it's called what did he call it? He had a specific name for it, but it's pretty simple, but it's like writing your priorities down. Yeah. And then scaling those, like working backwards, scaling those with like a value scale. And see where you land. So I was like basically putting a math problem in front of my wife, you know, because I'm like, okay, well, how are we going to make this work? Because initially I was just like, this is what we're doing. That is not how it works.
That doesn't go very
that doesn't go very well. Right? Yeah. As most guys can kind of attest to. But hey, let's get on the same page here, and let's write down like our top 10 priorities for our family, right? And then let's value engineer this. Let's write 1 to 5 on that as like, hey, if being close to coffee is your number 1, but like on a scale from 1 to 5, like that's a 1. It's not a 5. Yeah. So the crazy thing was like, hey, we looked at, this is probably deeper than you want to go, but we looked at those top 10 things, and like my wife and I were like spot on 1 through 5. And then 5 through 10 got a little muddy. Yeah. But like the 1 through 5s were all 5s.
You were lined up.
We were lined up.
Yeah.
And so I looked at my wife and I said, okay, well, can we do these 5 things here in Utah? And we couldn't. They just weren't there for us.
It gave you some clarity.
It gave us some real clarity and I think it really helped with her to go, man, I really love it here. I got a good group of friends. This whole thing, this is awesome. But hey, our ultimate goal for our family, like we can't do here. And so after that conversation, after I didn't just force feed her, where we were on the same page, it was like, it was a really easy decision.
That's
and
cool.
then now that we're here, she goes, man, like I could have never done what I'm doing here or there. And I'm so grateful.
That is cool.
So
it's awesome when you kind of line up on that stuff.
Yeah.
And then you kind of, I think when you line up a little bit on that, you also start knowing it's probably your calling, and you get some discernment around that.
Yes.
I think especially between like a husband and wife.
Yeah. Well, and then we had like, we're big, like we're believers, but we're big kind of like, hey, everything happens for a reason, right? And so there's been multiple things that have just been a direct arrow. It's like, oh my gosh, this lined up perfect. This lined up perfect.
Doors are opening
in this regard. And then like doors that like, if we were still in Utah, would have never been the case. And so it's just been a very good, like reaffirming that we made the right decision. And obviously things aren't always going to go right, but it's so far it's been like a very clear, this is where we were meant to be.
Did you have a lot of friends and families, coworkers in your Utah life that just thought you were insane?
No, all those guys in Utah were like, man, I'm so jealous. Well, again, most of my buddies are like, hey, I like hunters and fishers and outdoormen and guys that like enjoy that side of it too. So like they're hey, we can do that stuff here in Utah, but I get where you're going. And so they're, and most of them, come up and see it and they're like, oh man. So it's been a lot of fun.
What do you think stops a lot of guys from doing that?
Well, first and foremost, this is the easy button for me, is that like hockey for me, like definitely created a lot of opportunity just like monetarily wise and giving me the space to do that. Right. So I think financially is like a huge thing. To uproot your family and move is a huge step. And it has a lot of financial burdens. And, so I think that's probably like my initial thing.
Yeah.
But like there's so much that goes into it. I think a lot of people are tied to the family, which I can definitely like hear and respect where, but we had already separated ourselves from that. Like my folks, like they still, one of them's in California, one of them's in Utah now. And then her folks are still live in California. And so we were never going back to California.
Yeah. Wasn't happening.
It wasn't on the dinner plate. So, but we had already kind of decided, hey, we're not gonna have family close to us. So it is what it is. That's another tie. But it's a big decision. And then if you're not on the same page with your wife and your direction of your family, it's even harder because you can't. You can't. It's really hard to not. Be on the same page and make that big decision where one person's going, I really love it here, but I don't see why we're going to go there. So those are probably, I think, the biggest three.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're not aligned with your spouse on some of that stuff,
it makes it tough.
Brutal.
Yeah,
really brutal.
Tough.
When you like think about it now, like, do you think you would have made the move out here and did what you did without your faith?
No. I think that was a big thing. While I talked to you about this, but while I was in Utah, and this was just another stepping stone for me. But while I was in Utah, got linked up with a bunch of guys, and it's called Christ-led Communities. It's 12 guys in a discipleship group we met every Monday, and every Monday for 2 years from 6 to 8 a.m. And so meeting with these guys, and a lot of them were older than me. I was the youngest in the group by like 3 or 4 years. So a lot of the guys were older. And just the direction of that group made me realize that now is the time to do that. And so a lot of that was driven by soul searching and some tough conversations. And again, like I didn't approach it to my wife the first time the right way, and thankfully had a guy that was in my group that be like, hey, here you go.
Yeah, some support.
Why don't you try this? Yeah.
That's
and they,
cool.
And they were awesome about it. They were, we don't want you to leave, but we get, hey, what your goals are here. And once that was kind of like highlighted and talked about with my wife, it was a pretty easy decision. But like, yeah, you talk about faith. It was just, it was a calling for me. And I don't know what that calling's going to be here now that I'm here.
Yeah.
Still figuring that out, but
Yeah.
but it sure seems like I'm on the right path.
Hey guys, there are a lot of trends out there. And one trend that I've personally found in my own life through experience that has been a game changer is cold plunging and cold water therapy. The benefits for me have been off the charts when it comes to two main categories. The physical inflammation reduction from cold plunging every day has been a complete game changer, but my favorite part of cold water therapy has been the mental aspect, the mental clarity, the stress reduction, and most importantly, the ability to build mental toughness every day in a very simple way by just forcing myself to get in that cold water has been a drastic improvement that is easy, fast, and efficient. I've tried countless different ways to access cold water therapy, from the redneck version, horse troughs, to building my own cold plunge system off Amazon parts and pieces. Every time I've tried that, it has been a disaster until we found Ice Barrel. Ice Barrel is the most advanced barrel design on the market, and they have the most advanced high-tech chiller on the market as well. I've met the CEO, I've worked out with the CEO, we've had them at the lab. They're a great team, American-made manufacturing, and we're proud to announce that you can now access a discount on Ice Barrel products. All you need to do as a podcast listener is use the code MOUNTAINTOUGH. That's going to get you 15% off all Ice Barrels except the chiller. Again, that's Mountain Tough, all caps, all one word, on icebarrel.com. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough Podcast. It's kind of like biblically where, like, the Bible does talk about, like, my sheep know my voice. And I think sometimes you just hear these things from God, not audibly, but you're just hearing in your soul of making these changes or making these steps. But even when you do that, you most of the time have no clue why. And you might not even ever find out why. Like, you might impact one person out here because he wanted you here, but then you might die without ever figuring that reason out. But
well, and the other thing you talk about is, like, you might not hear that right. Mm-hmm. Well, for me, and I talked about losing the madness over the mountain, I can't. I know when I was in places like this, I don't hear it clearly from him. Mm. But when I'm here and I have time and I have space and I'm able to clear my head, it's like I've never felt closer.
Yeah.
And it's just like, if I'm able to, that's been a big thing for me. Let's call it this. I'm an introvert, by nature, but you know, I get my energy from being alone and, like, doing things that, like, going for hunting or hiking or whatever it is, right? So I get my energy from that, but that's when I feel closest to God. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Without a doubt. Yeah. And so that's really hard. That was really hard for me to do and hear the purpose in my calling in a city. Because, man, that noise. It's constant. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like, you have to be intentional about it, and you can be, but some guys can do it really well living in Boston. I got buddies that did it awesome. Yeah. But they find their time and everything's good. I have a really hard time with that.
Yeah, I think about all the time on this show, we talk a lot about any guy that's out there struggling with anything, one quick and easy hack to change really quickly is to just go in the backcountry for 3 or 4 days without your phone. And it's because there's something so magical about, like, getting the world quiet around you. And it is difficult to do in town, at work, around your family. And then there's more distraction than ever before. But I tell a lot of guys, it does not need to be a hunting trip. Just don't take your phone and just camp a few days in the mountains. Yep. And it doesn't even have to be out west, but something about that quietness is a game changer for sure.
I think it was the book, I Have you read The Comfort Crisis?
Yeah.
Is that the book that says it's 3 days minimum?
It might be.
One of those,
Yeah.
I think it was either that one or another one, but like it takes like your brain, we've been programmed so far, like just with your phone and all the noise and everything like that. I think it's minimum of 3 days. And after day 3 without your phone,
something happens.
Something changes. So like when I try and book hunting trips, like they're minimum 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And then I try to book ones that are like, there's no cell phone service.
Yeah. It's a game changer.
It's just a game changer. Like if you can get to that like 3 to 5 day and even 7 day where you're like, my wife always laughed because like I'd go on these trips and I'd come back and I'm out these trips and it's just killing me. I am eating terrible food out of, Mountain House or Peak, whatever it is. And just getting calories in, eating gummies and just like gummy bears and cookies and all this stuff. But I come back and I have like the most energy I've ever had.
You come back on cloud 9.
Just cloud 9. And it's like, what's wrong with you? You know, like you should be, you lost 10 pounds. You look like crap. but why are you like so excited? It's amazing that how, oh man, it's just the best feeling. Mm-hmm. You just feel like completely rejuvenated and it's crazy.
Yeah, my wife's always been like that too, where now if she knows I'm struggling, she'll just be like, you got to get out in the mountains for a few days. Yeah. Because she sees what it looks like when we come home from
Mm-hmm.
those trips. It's like you have so much adrenaline, you're so pumped up. A lot of times in the backcountry, you do start getting a lot of clarity around like the goals you have and the things you want to do. So you come home just fired up to work on those things. Yep. It's a good little trick for people.
It's awesome.
What do you think about like what you're doing now and how that relates to the mindset that did get you to the NHL? Like what do you correlate to what helped you to make it to the pro level in hockey?
To what I'm doing now career-wise?
Or I guess
just in general?
Curious around, like, were there certain mindset things you think about that got you to that pro level versus like talent and hard work? What do you think got you there?
Mine's a pretty unique story. I think, I would say unique just because I consider it unique, right? I think some people consider it unique, but I think every professional athlete for the most part has a unique story where they've had like cornerstones in that journey from, I started skate when I was 5. I knew at 6 years old what I wanted to do. And that was all I wanted to do was play hockey. That was it. And so, but I think every guy who in any professional sport has those like cornerstone moments and things that really like set them apart and where they learned the value of extra time and hard work and this, that, and the other. For me, like I was, a late bloomer, never really a skill guy. Had to work harder than the other kids. And, you hear a lot of that story. But for me, like there were certain things that happened to me along the way that set me up for when I did get to the NHL that certainly made my life easier. Talk about this a lot when, when, I go to talk to kids or, a buddy calls me up and he's like, hey, can you talk to our team or bring something up? And man, I was the smallest kid on the ice when I was a kid, and my nickname I was Pee-wee. So I was Pee-wee because I was younger because I played as like a 12-year-old. I played with the 15-year-olds, 13. I played with 6. So I was always playing up. So I was always the small kid, right? But I was cut from a lot of teams as a kid, a lot of teams, and then I went to prep school. Back east at boarding school in Western Mass. And I went my junior year in high school, which is kind of like a big recruiting year. And as a junior, I was cut from the varsity team. So like that's kind of a big year. Played JV that year, got called up at the very end. And then ended up signing, after my senior year, I decided to go back for a post-grad year, which is a 5th year of high school, which out here is like, what are you talking about? No, I did 5 years of high school. So I went for a post-grad year and then ended up getting recruited to go to University of Vermont, go through my 4 years at Vermont, never drafted, got to the end and didn't really have any offers, and got called as an amateur tryout to go play in Providence, the AHL. Played a couple of games there. Got called in the summertime to go back on a professional tryout with the Bruins. I played well during the training camp and signed an American Hockey League deal. Played in the American Hockey League for 2 weeks, and then they're like, hey, we need to sign this guy to an NHL deal. So I signed an NHL deal. So there were a number of times where I was like,
man,
kind of down and out.
It wasn't looking good.
It was not looking good for a while.
Long time.
In multiple stages of my career.
Yeah.
There were just like, there were times. And, I had a lot, like I said, had a lot of help, coaching-wise, mentor-wise. My folks were nothing but supportive. Friends and family, the same thing. So I had a lot of people in my corner, but I think I learned at a very young age the value of failure, right? Yeah. It's truly like, hey, number one, it will tell you, do you really want to do this? Number two, it will tell you that, hey, failure is actually probably a really good thing.
Just teaching us all this stuff.
Yeah, it's giving you, it's sharpening your mind in a lot of ways that, okay, you're either gonna pivot and you're gonna find something else that you really like, or hey, if you're really all in on this, then guess what? You need to spend a lot more time in the gym. You need to spend a lot more time on the ice. You need to spend a lot more time working on your skills. Yeah. And if you're going to do that, then okay. So I saw the success of doing that at a young age, going, okay, I'm cut from this team. Well, I'm going to come back next year. I'm going to really show these guys, right?
You got to put in the work.
You put in the work, and then, oh my gosh, like that actually worked. So learn that at a young age, thankfully. And then that kind of just transitioned and spiraled and became more as the career went on, and that helped me a lot with my injuries per se. Yeah. Moving on down when I played in the NHL, I had a lot of injuries. Yeah. That helped me a ton of that with that, because there were times where, man, I was really feeling sorry for myself. But
all
banged up. And so there were a lot of times where I was really feeling sorry for myself, but a lot of those things really helped me in the long run.
I've used a ton of Bluetooth speakers over the years, and they all have never quite had enough output for me to really have an awesome home gym workout on a Bluetooth speaker. But the Turtle Box is in a whole new ball game. They have leveled up this product, so the bass and the output you get out of a Turtle Box is quite amazing. It's funny how we started using them at the lab. We had an awesome sound system at our new lab here in Bozeman. We were using it so much, we actually blew our brand new system out. We went right to the Turtle Boxes, and so we paired two together in the lab, and that was a lot of output for the Mountain Tough team and all of our testing to have phenomenal sound in our gym for a great workout with great music. We know there's a ton of Mountain Toughers training in their basements, in their garages, and I know a lot of you are looking for great sound to play some music in the background to your MGDs. This is a great product for you to check out. Turtle Box is at a whole new level. The bass and the volume you can get out of that box. It's a sweet product. You guys can check them out at turtleboxaudio.com. Use promo code TOUGH for a free Turtlebox hat with the purchase of a Gen 2 speaker. The hat must be added to your cart before entering the promo code TOUGH, TOUGH. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough Podcast. It's crazy that you knew so young that hockey was your thing. You see that a lot in the special operations community too. It's definitely a reoccurring story where someone's like, I knew at 10 that
read a book, saw a movie,
there's a lot of the movie story.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of, this is what I knew I was going to do since I was 8, 9, 10, 11. Yep. That's crazy that you had the same experience.
Oh, but lucky, right? Like I knew at a 6-year-old, like, this is what I'm doing. There's like, I will beg, pillage, and plead, like I'm heading in that direction, like no matter what.
And you guys weren't really in a hockey town, were you?
No, we were in California.
That's
like, but there was like, Gretzky got, to the Kings, and then like hockey rinks were going up everywhere. My dad was a football guy, and we just got lucky. We moved into a new house when I was 5, and we were playing roller hockey outside, my older brother, younger brother, and the kid down the road was ice hockey. And he's like, hey, you guys ought to come check this out. So I tried it one time. I'm like, yep. this is it. I love this. This is awesome. And so that was it.
Yeah, that's pretty rare coming out of California.
Yep. And that was kind of why, when I moved back east, because it was like you kind of hit a spot in California where your development needs to continue to progress, and like you don't have the coaches or the programs or whatever it is that you need to make a decision. And my parents and I decided that boarding school was probably a good spot for us, which I absolutely loved. Yeah, which is really cool. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
it is an incredible, like that being your story is a lot of mental toughness, because like I couldn't agree more that failure teaches us so much, but that also is a point where a lot of people are going to quit on those failure journeys, especially when they're extended over decades, where like you had to fight through decades of failures to get to the pros, which is kind of like the definition of mental toughness. Was a lot of that mental toughnness, especially in those younger years, coming from your parents and how they raised you?
Yeah, I think so. I attribute a lot to that. My dad was, he's a general contractor, 72. He just retired. Congrats, Dad. It's like, he promised me at like 65 he was going to be done, and here we are 7 years later, just still chugging along. No, but yeah, I think my dad, and then my mom, she worked as an x-ray tech, and then she did old folks home and whatnot. But I think like growing up, there was no shortage of work around the house to do. We were on some land and doing some stuff. And so there was a lot of that was instilled from my parents. So fortunate there. At the time, I'm like, gosh, cursing them. But now I look back and I'm like, gosh, the value of that. And that tangent here, but like that's really a lot of the reason why we are where we are for my kids.
Yeah,
is that nowadays culturally,
the work ethic.
If I can give them that leg up, they're gonna crush it.
Yeah,
whatever they choose to do, if they have that in their back pocket, doesn't matter what they're gonna do. Like they're gonna crush it. So that was a huge thing. I think a lot of that came from my parents, and God bless them. They were worked their butts off, and gave us all the opportunity, because hockey's not cheap. And the other thing is like living in California. We would drive. Like my dad he'd go from 5 a.m. He'd drive down to LA, get there at like 7:30. It's a 2.5 hour drive down. He'd drive down there, work all day, get in his car at 3 o'clock, hit traffic, come back, pick us up.
Dang.
And then we'd have to drive another hour and a half back to practice. So we get to practice till 10, get back, or that's just 3 to 4 days a week. And then he's up at the same next day going at it.
So he's in the car like 6 hours a day. He's in the car
all day long.
Man.
And it's like, at the time I'm like, yeah, everyone's doing this. But then now I got kids, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's just the sacrifices they made. It was just, and that's, you see it now as a parent, but like, gosh, I wish I don't think I took it for granted, but I think there was just a part of me that thought everyone's doing this, right? So, but yeah, I think a lot of the hard work stuff came from my folks.
Yeah, that's a big blessing.
Yeah.
And it does make you think about your own kids and how you put that work ethic or expose them to that work ethic. And you guys are in a great spot to do that.
That's the plan.
When you are a little bit more rural, you do pick up on all these little things you learn in terms of like moving a truck, driving a tractor, loading a skid steer, like a lot of those things later in life, you're like, man,
I wish I would.
Game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not everyone knows these things.
Well, I think it gives, I think that a big thing is just kind of breeding that self-confidence in your kids. Like, how do you do that? Like, what does that look like? And for us, it looks like being able to do those things. And then they go, oh, well, I got this. I can figure that out, and so that's kind of, we view a lot of the things that we do at our place as homeschool.
Yeah.
Seriously, right? It checks a lot of the boxes. It's kind of interesting, but
your wife even calls it life school.
She calls it life school.
Yeah,
life school, right? So they'll get the book smart in, and they'll get that kind of stuff done. But there are definitely days where they're working on life skills, which is important. So.
What was life for you like in the pros? What was your experience like?
It was, so many good things. So many good things. And then there's also some bad, for sure.
Yeah.
like there was also some bad, and that was, you know, and I talk about my you know, we get into it a little bit. I talk about my faith journey, right? It's a journey.
Yeah.
Right. There was a lot of ups and a lot of downs.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't grow up in a traditionally Christian family. We were the seasoned Christians. You know, we'd do the Easter and Christmas
and Easter.
Yeah. But I look back at it now, and that's kind of where we're intentional with our kids about. It's like, man, if I would have had these tools that I have now back then, I think I would have made some decisions. And I'm grateful for all of it. Like there were plenty of decisions that, man, I regret absolutely, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think, and it got me to where I am right now, so I'm grateful for all of it, the good, bad, and the ugly. But there were a number of things I think I would have taken a different route given if I would have had a better foundation as a kid.
Yeah.
So, but pros were great. There was a lot of good things with it, some bad for sure, but that's life.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of people that see pro athletes as like, oh my gosh, what a life! It must be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of parts on the back end that people maybe don't know or understand, that it just it weighs heavy on a lot of guys. There's a lot of stress issues. There's a lot of anxiety issues and pressure, and you know, Boston's not a
Boston's a pretty big sports team.
Boston's a sports town.
City,
you know, it's like you win 2 games and everyone's like, they're gonna win the Stanley Cup. You lose 2 games and it's like, fire all of them, trade them, get them out of here.
Yeah,
you know,
they're hardcore over there.
They are for sure, and they made it easy to get up for games. I mean, that town is unreal. They embraced every bit of it, the good, bad, and the ugly. But you know, there were definitely some times where it was not easy, and you know, and then the injuries happen, and that weighs, you know, heavy. And that was, you know, I think like we talked to, like, kind of when this started, we talked about like, hey, kind of retiring early, right? I think I kind of got to the point where like I just had enough.
Yeah,
you know, I think I'd had enough.
Banged up. The travel you guys did was
travel's
nuts.
tough.
So
Travel's
much
real
travel.
tough. You know, I got lucky with our 2 kids, right? I missed a game to have my daughter, which I would do it. I mean, I'm not missing my daughter getting born. I'm not missing anybody getting born. But missed a game, my daughter getting born, and then I played the next game. I played the next day after, you know, like a day after she was born, and then same thing with my son. Like I didn't miss a game for my son. It was on a practice day, but then played the game the next day, and so yeah, there's just and another conversation that was tough with my wife was that, you know, like I can only do this thing one way, where like hockey's first,
all in.
I can't be half in.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and she understood that. It's a hard pill to swallow as a wife and now a mother. But man, there was only one way I could do this.
Yeah.
And then I kind of got to the point where, hey, like I realized that family is first. I need to reevaluate this here. And so that was kind of like another part of the retirement thing.
Hey guys, I did want to interrupt for a quick minute right here and let you know about some supplements I've been taking. I did shy away from supplements for a long time. I was always cautious about what they were made out of, where they were from, and who the team was behind the brands. But over the last couple of years, I've got to meet the team at Mountain Ops from top to bottom, and they are an amazing group of humans. I've got to know the CEO, Trevor Farnes, really well, and he is a mission-focused individual that cares about humans living a better quality of life so that they can have that abundant life. So over the last couple of years, he has helped me add some things that have changed the game for me. One of those things that I've added is creatine from Mountain Ops. It helps me maintain some muscle mass, but also it's a big player in cognitive function, one of the most researched supplements out there. Also, I've added reds, greens, and protein, all from Mountain Ops. What I found as a busy professional, always on the run, I do eat a whole foods diet for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but on the go, it's hard to get enough vegetables, fruits, and protein. So I've added that from Mountain Ops, and it has significantly changed the game. I can feel it in my performance. I haven't got sick for a long time, and I can certainly feel it in my mental clarity as well. The last thing I've added is the Mountain Tough Hydrate product for the backcountry, for hunting season. When I'm in the hills, I do run short on those electrolytes. We even have a Mountain Tough flavor, the Mountain Tough Lemon Lime Hydrate, and that is a game changer for hydration in the backcountry. So I keep it really simple. That is all I've added to my protocol, and it has certainly helped me, and I certainly believe in the team and the culture behind Mountain Ops. They have started an initiative that's been around for a while called Conquer Hunger. Conquer Hunger is giving meals to hungry kids that aren't getting enough food, and they've given out over 6 million meals plus to kids through their Conquer Hunger initiative. So every order that happens at Mountain Ops, a percentage of that order goes to Conquer Hunger. So certainly an incredible company, an incredible culture. As a listener to the show, you do get an exclusive offer to Mountain Ops, so make sure you check that out. The offer is incredible as a first-time purchase at mountainops.com. So build your order if it's your first time. They are offering you a 20% exclusive discount. All you need to do is enter the promo code MOUNTAINTOUGH, all one word, all caps, for 20% off your first order at mountainops.com. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough Podcast. Do you think was your faith kind of like maturing through that season?
Yes. Yeah. And that's kind of what I think that like I said, I think I wish I would have had a more mature faith as a younger man. Because I think it would have made some of the stuff that I went through easier. It certainly helped us along the way, but there were times where I was so connected and things were good, and then there's like a year or two where, I'm not hearing anything, and it's my own fault.
Yeah. And in pro hockey, you probably have a few guys with really strong faith, and then quite a few that don't.
Yep.
So
for sure.
Kind of all over the board, just like
for
anything
sure.
else.
Yep. Well, and then like part of my role, and this is strange, but part of my role was not to score goals, right? It was to fight and be a tough guy and whatever it may be, right? And so there was like a part of me, this is part of me that I don't love, but like I like enjoyed that.
Because you were like an enforcer type.
I wouldn't say, part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like there were guys when I first came to the league who were true enforcers. Like that was their job to fight.
Yeah.
I was kind of like a middleweight, to be honest with you. So like I still play hockey, still play pretty well, but like this is a part of me that like kept me in the league.
That's a crazy part of hockey.
It is, yeah.
Like no other sport really has that.
Yeah, it's very unique.
Yeah.
And so I would say like a protector, put it that way, right? So there were times where guys took liberties on my teammates, and it was my job to protect and avenge and and police, if you will. And so there was like a really weird, as my faith grew too, there was like a really weird, like, this is totally wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I love it.
Yeah.
And then like that's the sin in me being like, man, you chose the violent side. You chose to avenge and revenge and look out for your teammates. And like, I loved that because it was, number one, gave me validation in the room and celebrated by my teammates, but also like the primal side of man is like to enjoy that violent side.
That's a crazy dynamic.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
It was really weird. And the crazy thing is like a few guys on my team who I would consider like probably kind of my best buddies on the team, but like they were probably the strongest Christians, and they were the same. They had the same, they were the tough guys.
Yeah.
So weird because it's so counter to like what's preached in the Bible and like what's like a good Christian man is.
Yeah.
But it's like, but I like this side of me a little bit. It's weird.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Did you crash and burn a little bit when you did retire? Like the first 6 months, first year, was it hard for you being out?
It was weird because I left knowing it was time to leave. There wasn't like did I make the right decision? I knew the second I like told the GM like, hey, I'm done. Like this is that it was the right decision. But I did, I went right into building my own home in Utah, which was like a first time ever doing it, which was just like a lot.
Yeah. Keeping you busy.
Keeping me super busy. And then like right after that, I went into project managing, right? So doing that again. So it was like, there was no time off, but I think there was definitely a side of me that like, especially come retired in July of 21, September of 21 and October, where normally I'm like getting ready for training camp. I was like scratching my face, my neck, like, hey, something's missing here,
Yeah.
And so like the competitive side of me, for sure, there was a crash and burn where I was searching for something.
Mm-hmm.
I was like back to lifting heavy weights again that like just totally destroy me.
Yeah.
Like what are you doing this for?
You just gotta compete.
You just gotta do something, right? Hunting's been a phenomenal thing for me in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Where that actually scratches a lot of especially archery hunting, or just like the mental side of like just getting beat up every day.
Yeah.
It was like really good for me.
Good replacement for that. Yeah. Because you have a season, you have to train for it.
Yes.
You're competing with the animals, you're competing with yourself.
Yeah.
You're competing with the mountain.
It's really interesting how that like translates, where like, oh man, it's January and I'm like already kind of setting my bow up.
Mm-hmm.
And like, hey, okay, I need to start planning this. And like, okay, by July, I want to make sure that this is squared away. And like, okay, by August, I got to have this dialed in.
Yeah.
And so like, there's like a kind of crescendo for that, which is kind of similar to hockey for me. It was that like season ends, 3 weeks off, and then it's like, hey, right back to it. And then by this time I need to hit these goals. By September, I got to be ready for training camp. By, like it translates, which is really cool.
It helps a ton.
Helps a lot.
I always talk about it's super unique that hunters, because some people will say like hunting is a sport. It's definitely not a sport. I think it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because you can see that with like people will decide what they drive because they're a hunter, where they live because they're a hunter, how they spend their time throughout the whole entire year outside of hunting season because they're a hunter, especially when you get into like, I think it's probably the same with like tree stand whitetail hunters or backcountry elk hunters. They're creating their whole entire life around this thing, which doesn't really happen in most recreational sports.
No.
So guys aren't like building their life around golf. They might golf a lot, but they're not deciding like what they drive and what they're doing all year. Hunting is definitely at a whole new level, which bringing like your family in and the food you get to eat because of hunting and then the people you get to meet, it does help so many people with that kind of like primal competitive thing that a lot of guys are looking for.
Yeah, for sure.
It's cool.
Yeah.
And you ended up buying and working on even a couple outfitting businesses, didn't you?
Yeah. So teammate and I, Brad, like when I was still playing, Brad Marchand and I are buddies, and we started a little company just for fun. And then that kind of gave us quickly morphed into like, because he's always like, his family's always outfitted. He's from like Nova Scotia, Halifax area in Canada, and they've always outfitted as a young age, and he's always like been into hunting the whole time. And so he's, he kind of talked to me a little bit about it, like, hey, let's start something with this and just go buy an outfit and, have a spot where we could go hunt every year, but sell enough hunts to keep the lights on. And, but that's been really cool. And I get to experience some things I don't think I would have had the opportunity without having that there, which was really, really fun. And, it's nice because it's closer to him. Like that's, his family mostly takes care of it, and like they're awesome, great people, and they know what they're doing with this. But it does, it's opened some doors as far as like going up there and doing some fun things. Yeah. And then like bringing some people up there. I've done some guiding up there now, and like it's just really cool.
And were you doing much hunting as a kid?
Not really.
Just all hockey.
All hockey. Like I've always, like first time I was ever exposed to hunting, I think I was 14, and it was at my cousin's lodge in Alder.
Crazy.
We were duck hunting and goose hunting, and then he's like, here's, here 14, here's a shotgun. Like go kill all the muskrats on the river. Like they're damming up the creek. I'm like, all right, cool. So we're out there and we're bird hunting and doing stuff, and I'm like, man, this is awesome. And then yeah, it's kind of weird now. My family kind of gives me a bunch of crap, but like I was like a huge animal lover. I still am. Huge animal lover. Like I had all the weird stuff. I was a snake kid. I had all the ferrets and stuff growing up. Yeah, it's like I had all the animals growing up. And so everyone's like, well, why are you a hunter? Like, well, man, part of it is like I love those animals so much that like I just like being around them. And then like the meat side of it, and then the full life cycle of it. Like hunting's very cathartic, extremely cathartic for me. And I've exposed my kids to it, my wife to it, and they've been a part of now. Like my kids have seen like 6 cow elk killed and 2 bulls. They've seen 3 deer killed, and then we've come down and we've quartered them out like at the house, and they're a part of it. And so they've got like they saw all of it. I'm like, Remy, like you're going to see all of this. We're going to expose. And there's initial kind of like, whoa, there's a lot there where they were 5 and 3 when they first saw it. And so a couple of years ago now, and initially they're like, whoa, this is a lot. By the end of quartering the first deer, by the end of going through the first elk, whatever, they're holding the back strap as we're cutting it out. And then they go, hey, Dad, for dinner, like, what are we having? Oh, remember that back strap?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. I was a part of that. It's
so special.
It's so special. I can't even quantify how special that is. And then, my daughter still, she wants to be a vet. She's 7, and she's like, well, I've seen all that. And so now like, I'm good with that. And I really love that. So I don't know. There's just so much to it.
Yeah. That part's so cool. I think like when kids see that and then they're part of the processing and then they know that they're eating meat that they helped process, it ties
crazy.
I mean, it ties everything together.
Yeah.
They literally know exactly like where their food came from.
Yeah.
Which, a lot of civilization doesn't really understand anymore. And that's like a super cool part of hunting. Mountain Tough is the fitness app trusted by the dedicated. Mountain Tough ethos is backed by, we've always wanted to be the best in the world at helping our customers become more mentally tough. So inside the Mountain Tough app, you're not only going to find all of our physical training programs, but you're going to find additional training as well so that you can stay sharp physically, mentally, spiritually, and nutritionally. The Mountain Tough app also allows you to train no matter where you are, anytime, anywhere. Additionally, the Mountain Tough app is going to have programs from beginners all the way up to elite athletes. And all of our programming is structured in a way that you can start with no gear at body weight, and you can go all the way up to programming that is full gear. So you can do that in a robust home gym or your local gym. There's no excuse for you not to start today. With Mountain Tough, you can conquer your goals with the ideal program for your lifestyle and schedule. Train with equipment or just your body weight on your phone, tablet, TV, or web browser. Most importantly, Mountain Tough will help you train your mindset so you are always ready for anything life throws your way. Mountain Tough is offering the Mountain Tough podcast listeners an incredible offer. 6 weeks free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do is use the code MTNPOD to redeem your 6 weeks of training. That'll be a 14-day free trial plus a whole additional 4 weeks of training. Just go to mountaintough.com and enter code MTNPOD for your 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough Podcast.
I never had that as a kid. Like I don't know where that kind of like came from, is like wanting to do that. But now that I just see like I said, I can't quantify it, but the value there for that is crazy. Yeah. It's just cool to see their face and how they respond to it, and the respect for the animal. It's full circle.
Yeah, it's incredible. Right. So hunting for you kind of started after the pros.
Yeah.
Or in the pros.
Yeah, while I was still playing, that was really interesting. It was like I was always a gun guy. Like loved shooting rifles and BB guns as a kid, and had rifles growing up and shotguns and stuff like that. But never really bow hunted ever. Never even knew what it was, or I had no desire to do it whatsoever. But in Boston, like there's no rifle hunting. There's no like shotgun season. These way out west there in Massachusetts there is, but and so you got to archery hunt. And Brad, my teammate, buddy, we're sitting in there, and he's like, "Hey, dude, like you got to get a bow. You got to come bow hunt." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good, man. Like I don't have time for that. I got to focus on hockey." He's like, "No, you need to get a bow." So he goes on eBay, and he's like an eBay guy, Secret South Marsh, but no, he's an eBay guy, and he bought this bow, this Matthews bow, and it showed I'm left-handed, so it showed up lefty, right? Showed up lefty. So he bought me my first bow,
nice,
right? And he's like, "Here, dude, we got to get you set up," and I actually broke my hand, and I was in a cast for 6 weeks, and right in the middle of archery season. And so like I would go in the morning and we would hunt like 15 minutes from practice, like right on the outskirts of the city, in these tiny little pockets.
Yeah.
Like that Brad had like knocked on the door and be like, "Hey, you mind if we're hunting there?" They're like, Brad Marchand?
Yeah.
Can you sign this jersey? Yeah, you're good.
That's insane.
It's so cool, man.
Yeah.
He pulls up and he's like, "Yeah, can you mind if we, you got 2 acres in the back, you mind if we hunt?" They're like, Are you really? It's so funny, but that's just Brad, and so he just loves it, and so he got us hooked up in a couple of great spots, and we're going out there and leaving practice. I'd go practice in the morning and skate, but I can't stick handling or anything, so I'd skate and work out and whatnot, and then I got the rest of the day, like it's past 12 o'clock.
Yeah,
and I'm like, "Oh, what am I doing?" So I would go, and I got a release that would fit around my cast, and so thankfully it was my left hand, so my trigger finger.
Yeah.
I'd go sit in this tree stand, and this was a part of it. Like I hadn't seen a deer before, like hunting. I've seen deer, but I've never seen a deer before hunting. So I'm sitting in this tree stand, and I went 21 days without seeing a deer.
What?
Straight. 21 days straight.
Holy
without
smokes.
seeing a deer. And I'm sitting in the same tree stand. And it got laughable because my wife's like, she come home, she's like, "Are you really hunting?
Where are you?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Seriously, like, what are you doing from noon to 7? Like, what's going on here?" So there was 21 days that I sat in this tree stand and did not see a deer. And then finally on day 22, this little tiny fork point buck shows up, walks 10 yards underneath my tree.
22 days.
22 days. And I remember I shot this thing, and I've never celebrated harder in my life. Just like, I have that thing mounted, just tiny little fork thing.
Oh, I bet you were
it's the
freaking
coolest
out.
thing ever. It was unbelievable. And from then on, I'm just hooked.
The adrenaline you probably had when he walked out.
It was epic.
Just
it was so
rate.
and he walked like 10 yards. I mean, right. So I had to move at a snail's pace to stand up and then draw. It took me like probably 5 minutes to stand up and draw back while he just stood there because he's just 10 yards. It was so cool.
Man, that's
pretty
incredible.
sweet.
Those are big moments.
It was.
Like,
I remember, I could tell you the temperature it was that day. I could tell you, like, it just like couldn't completely burned into my mind.
Man, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's how you got into it. Because wasn't Brad like flying? He was like flying to hunts and then making it back to games in time.
Yeah. I mean, he's a wild man. Like,
yeah.
Flying to hunt, not telling anybody, hunting the day off in Colorado or, wherever we were, flying to this and going hunting and then coming back, making practice. And like,
it's crazy.
It was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Man, it was fun shooting that SIG thing too, the arc.
That was
like
fun.
the competitive nature of that. And then having Barney on our team, I think about it all the time of like, man, like we should have been able to pull that thing together.
I'll take a little bit of fall on that. I really regret not having my stuff squared away as well as I should have. You know what I mean? Like, I wish I had more time to really dial that in.
I definitely should have worked on my archery more.
I am the same. I wish I was like, it was like kind of midsummer, right? We just moved up here and so like, I was like trying to, get my stuff together. I think we should have won. I think we could have won.
Man.
But that was a lot of fun. A ton of fun.
Yeah.
And I brought like you said, the competitive side back in for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Archery, rifle, pistol. Some of those stages were just like kind of a mental battle too. And then some of them you just would kind of luck out on. I remember that like night coyote one.
We just like cleaned house.
And Daniel Horner's like, how'd you guys do that? It's like, I don't know. It's just a thermal coyote. You just shoot it. It's not that hard.
That was awesome.
I think it's all the spotlighting I did as a kid.
The night shoots.
Barney, man, he's an incredible coach, though. Like his coaching skills when he was coaching like archery stuff.
Yeah.
And his positivity. That was awesome.
I like that guy a lot.
Yeah.
I really do. I respect him a lot. He's a guy who when he's into something, he's all in. I don't think he muddies the water. When I mean muddy the water, I think it's like there's a lot of things that I'd really like to get into.
Yeah.
Right. But I really want to be good at these things. And I think
you can't do everything.
You can do everything. You really can't. There's so many things that I want to do, but like if you want to be really good at these things, you need to be really good at these things and focus on those. And I think that he's like kind of the epitome of that.
Yeah.
Where like he knows what he really wants to be good at, and he's picked those things, and he's really good at those things.
So true. Yeah, his whole year he's just building his year around archery season.
Yep, and he's just got it figured out. And it's like, and everyone's like, oh man, he must be, he must be hunting this, that, and the other, and all these like. It's like no.
Yeah,
that guy puts the time in. Truly puts the time in, and that's what his goal is. And he's not going to let anything else get in the way. And
he's building his whole life around it.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
I respect the hell out of him for it.
Yeah. And like he's like right now he's training for something he already knows about in October.
Yep.
And he'll train every day for that until October.
Just getting it dialed in. Just sharpening. And every year he's just gotten better at it. You can see. I mean, it's like proof is in the pudding with that guy. And then he's just a good human being.
Yeah. I mean, his positivity and his optimism is so infectious.
It is.
Like just seeing him, you're like, all right, I'm going to have a better day now.
Things are going to go well. Barney's here.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for swinging by the lab and appreciate you jumping on the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, man. This was a ton of fun.
Proud of you. Proud of you for, creating your own life and doing it the way that you want.
I appreciate it. Well, awesome. Now we're neighbors too. So
yeah.
Now you're stuck with me.
Yeah.
I tell Pete that you're stuck with me now.
Good neighbor to have.
Yeah, for sure. So we're super grateful to be here.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks. What a great conversation with Kevan. What an amazing human, an amazing guy. Remember, every single episode, we're looking for that golden nugget. What can we take away from the show that we can apply to our life today, this evening, tomorrow? That practical application right away. For me, hands down, the golden nugget with Kevan is that grind versus talent. He talks about not being the biggest kid, not being the most talented kid, but he just never quit working at his dream. You heard him talk about that hockey had been his dream since he was 6. He knew he was going to play hockey, but he wasn't the biggest. He wasn't the most talented. He had to work really hard at those skills, and it finally paid off in the end. But as you can hear from his story, it took a long time. We're talking about 10, 15, 20 years of hard work for his dream to fully be realized and lived through. But he never stopped grinding. He never quit working at his goal. Sometimes our goals take time like that. They're not going to come fast. They're not going to come easy. If you know you're on the right path, you got to just keep grinding. What a great conversation with Kevan. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you're checking these podcasts out on YouTube as well if you haven't already at Mountain Tough Fitness Lab. Thanks, guys. Love you guys, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Mountain Tough Podcast. We'll see you next week.